Hello, I'm Scott Brady with Overland Journal and Expedition Portal, and I'm coming out of the frunk of the 2022 Ford Lightning electric vehicle pickup. This thing is actually super fun to drive. So start off with 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, and it works just like a regular pickup. You can go to Home Depot, you could take the kids to school, but then it's also got that performance, and it does have all-wheel drive. So this is the model with the extended range, and it's got the 2 motor unit as well. So let's not only see how it does on our test track, let's also tell the story of towing an HQ19 Black Series trailer all the way from Prescott, Arizona to Southern California and back. Okay, here I am with the Ford Lightning. Now this is the dual motor model, and it's also the extended range model as well. So that puts it at about 320 miles. But once you hook a trailer like this behind it, so this is the Black Series HQ19, so it's about 25 feet overall length and about 7,500 pounds and just over 10 feet tall. You put all of those parameters into the truck and it actually helps recalculate your new range towing a trailer like that. So that gives me about 162 miles now. And interestingly enough, I am 136 miles from my first high-speed charging station in Quartzsite. So it'll be about 300-mile trip to Southern California, where we're gonna swap out the HQ19 for a brand new one and see how this Lightning does towing it the whole way. All right, so we're currently driving down Iron Springs on our way into Skull Valley, and we are regenning nicely. It shows we have a 136-mile range, and we have 133 miles to go to the first fast charging station in Quartzsite, Arizona. So it's gonna be close. All right, so we're going down the Yarnell grade, which is good news because it gives us the chance for some regen. As you can see here on the dash, I'm pushing quite a bit of regen back, which is making a difference. So I'm at 108 miles of range and 98 miles to the next fast charging station. All right, so I'm cruising along here on Arizona 60. I've got 51 miles of range, and it shows that I've got 30 miles to the next charging station here, which is awesome. And it is just a beautiful evening. Sun is setting over the mountains. It's just gorgeous. And it's a relaxing, easy drive in this truck. There's a lot of technology in this vehicle. So since most of the drive so far has been downhill, I've been able to take advantage of regen. So that's the reason why I'm going to make it to Quartzsite with plenty of miles to spare. And then the adaptive cruise control just makes it very easy. It also has kind of an intelligent driver assist cruise as well. So you have to have your hand on the wheel, and otherwise it just cruises along and even makes turns for you. Doing a great job. The truck is driving, so it certainly reduces driver fatigue. And it's just plenty of power. I mean, it goes 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, so towing a 7,000-pound trailer just feels effortless as far as towing performance goes. A very stable truck as well, with the independent front and rear suspension. You know, that would obviously affect off-road performance slightly, but on-road performance is just excellent. Okay, so the range indicator is at 25 miles. Cruising along at 60 miles an hour here on I-10. Quartzsite off in the distance. Absolutely beautiful twilight as well. And you can see that we're about 5.9 miles from the charging station. Shoehorn the Black Series and the Lightning into the charging station. Fortunately, there's nobody else here, and a couple of the charging stations are down, but I'm now connected to the 350 kilowatt, which will have me charged up in just a matter of a couple hours, which is so much more efficient. That's one of the big considerations, is how do you gain back that efficiency that you have at the pump? And of course, putting a big pipe of electricity into here is the same way that you do that. So I came in with 21 miles remaining. Didn't have too much range anxiety. For me, it was actually kind of fun, but it really interesting to get it on charge right now. All right, so we're at Shirako Summit, and we've been charging for just a little bit over 3 hours here. We've added 246 miles of range, not towing range, but total range that we've added. And then we're at 95%, so that's going to be plenty to get us going again. All right, so like many new technologies, just because an app says that something exists doesn't mean that it does. I remember traveling early on, and a place would say that they have Wi-Fi, and oftentimes you could connect to Wi-Fi, but there was no connection to the internet. Same thing with EV charging. So the apps show that there's a fast charger here at the farmhouse restaurant, and there's not. So we're going to continue on and find another one. All right, so this is one of the challenges pulling a trailer. Not all of the charging stations are actually in a spot that is really trailer accessible. So I'm parked up on the curb here, and I am connected to a fast charger, which makes a big difference. So it's only going to be, well, it'll be less than 2 hours, and I'll be to 98% charged. And I'm currently at 20% charge, so pretty quick, not too long. And I'm at a big outlet mall, so I'm gonna grab some food and try not to buy anything and see how the charging goes. So one of the things that I notice is when you're driving with cruise control on and in a modified autonomous mode, that these trucker's grooves create quite a challenge for the truck, especially with the trailer behind it. So the combination of the trucker's grooves and the Black Series can result in the wheel really fighting back and forth. It gets into this little bit of a cyclic scenario where it's kind of ramping up and down the sides of the trucker's grooves. And then once the trailer starts to move, then the truck has to more aggressively respond, which just starts to accelerate the wobble. You can see it a little bit in the wheel, but I can feel it more in the seat of my pants. So that's one of the challenges, because in trucker's grooves, all it takes is just a little bit of side pressure. So you would just move either a little bit more towards the middle, and then put pressure on one side of the trucker's grooves with just a little bit of main shaft angle input, like I'm doing. I'm slightly pressuring to the left, but the truck won't, in autonomous mode, it won't do that itself. But that's how you solve this wobble that we're getting and sway out of the trailer as a result of the trucker's grooves in the semi-autonomous mode. Just crossing over the Colorado River here. Got 18 miles to go here to Quartzsite, and I've got a 45-mile range. Just had a warning pop up a few miles ago that I am my driving range is low, but cruising along here. 55 miles an hour works in California because that's the speed limit when you're towing a trailer, but Arizona's the wild, wild west, and it seems like the average speed is 85 even by the truckers. So I actually need to increase my speed a little bit now that I have crossed the border. All right, so the 350 kilowatt charging is the key. It's only going to take, it's 7-11 right now, and it's only going to take just over an hour to go 70% of a charge. So that is much quicker than I've seen with the other chargers. But but I do need to get it to 100% if I'm going to make it all the way back to Prescott. I'm not so sure that I will, so I might actually have to have a rescue team on standby. We will report back. But a beautiful evening here in Quartzsite, and of course we're not needing to pay $6.23 for diesel right now. It ends up being about 40 bucks to fill up the truck with electricity. When I fill it up from the office, it was just under $18 to fill up the Lightning. All right, so let's talk about how the Ford Lightning did through our test track. We took it through the lower portion of the track, which is where we take every vehicle. There's a lot of cross-axle events. There's an extreme side slope, good low traction events to give us a sense for how the traction control works. And the EV is very interesting. So there aren't traditional prop shafts. The front axle is not connected to the rear axle. So the rear has a locker in it, which I got no wheel spin out of. And the front would actually spin faster than the rear to try to give it some additional traction, which I found really interesting, and it actually worked really well. So I would get some wheel spin out of the front, and the brake traction control works in the front, so that was actually assisting to pull the vehicle through the obstacles. Now that rear locker is super important because this vehicle has very limited articulation. So this is independent front suspension and independent rear suspension with heavy sway bars, anti-sway bars, so we don't get a lot of articulation out of this truck. It doesn't feel unstable though because the center of gravity is extremely low. Those battery packs and the motors are all down at the lower part of the body, so you just really don't feel like that the vehicle is unsettled at all. In fact, I took it to the maximum side slope that I could at 23 degrees, and it felt more stable than most vehicles at 5 or 6 degrees, even less than that. The other thing that I like, good camera views available to it. The locker in the rear is kind of interesting. You actually have to go into a menu and touch sensitive, turn the locker on and off, which takes some getting used to, but it's working. And we were able to make it all the way through the lower section of our test track. But overall, this truck actually works really well as a truck. So it tows effortlessly. I pulled a 7,000-pound Black Series HQ19 trailer behind it, and it accelerates. It feels like as fast as other full-size trucks without a trailer. 0 to 60 in 4 seconds makes this really fun to drive around town. The handling is excellent because again, that weight is very low. Ride quality is excellent for that front and rear independent suspension. Overall NVH is extremely low as well. Let's go through cons. This is primarily from the perspective of overlanding. So off-road, the vehicle works fine. It doesn't work quite as well as a higher trim level, off-road trim level Ford F150, mostly because of that independent rear suspension, but it does work. But I'm seeing limited articulation, a little bit more wheel spin because that front axle is trying to work more actively to get the vehicle through the obstacle. But the real thing that you notice about this truck is that when you hook up a trailer to it, you get into about 120 miles of range, and that is just too little range in order to make it between most stops. I was able to get all the way to Southern California and back, but I had a little range anxiety and it added a bunch of time to my trip. I'm constantly trying to find a charger, not only a charger that works for the vehicle and gets enough current into it, so a higher or faster charge rate, but then I've also got a trailer behind me, so I'm trying to find a place to park. I think the existing EV infrastructure isn't really set up for trucks towing trailers. Without the trailer, I don't think any of that would be a big deal. I could drive pretty much all the way to Southern California on a single charge. So that wouldn't have been an issue, but with the trailer behind it, it cuts the travel distance nearly in half. The other thing about it is not every place has good infrastructure for charging. So where I live in Prescott, there was one charger downtown and it was inoperable yesterday. So it didn't work and I had to go find another charger, which was even slower, and it was 10-15 minutes away from my home. So you have to be mindful of that. You're going to want to have a home charging system, and then you're going to want to really plan out your trips well. That's not a downside to the Ford Lightning. The Lightning works great. It's just that existing EV infrastructure is not quite to the level that we need it to be for long distance overland travel. I will say though that it is coming. Those changes will improve, the infrastructure will improve, and this will end up being a solution for around the world overland travel.